and welcome to another episode of our crossover event of Lizzie Watches Yaoi and of myself and Gaia's horror demonic possession podcast, Beneath Your Skin. We are watching the amazing, the beautiful, and very on theme anime of Vatican Miracle Examiners, which is about two hot priests that clearly love each other that examine miracles and cases of demonic possession and exorcism, which is why it fits into our horror podcast so well, and why it also fits into my love of yaoi and shonai and all things attractive boys who love each other. How are you, Miss Gaia?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you, Zoe. And thank you for introducing me to this amazing anime. I adore it. I'm a little bit sad because we won't see Mario Lotte anymore, but hey, I can live with Lauren.
Yeah, there are some pretty boys during the course of this series. There's something for everyone. And this one is particularly because it's a different track to this episode, but then it's building up some more character information. So at first we open with this terrible case has gone down, and there's been trafficking, and government secrets have been leaked, and secrets from the Vatican have been leaked, and the criminal is this cold-hearted criminal with no remorse for their actions, absolutely they don't have any beliefs, spiritual, ethical, religious. They are just cold criminal, but they've been caught. But they're not showing any consideration or care about all the lives they've ruined and all the secrets they have let out. And they're seen as an unholy and demonic person, and they are a danger to everything. So they want to be locked up, and the Vatican needs to keep an eye on this person who is potentially demonic. And as we find out, this criminal is Lauren. Now, how was this revealed for you, Gaia? Knowing that Lauren is this horrible, sociopathic criminal locked in a cell.
I loved it because usually I love psychopaths and sociopath characters, and this one, it's a real one. We only see him showing emotions toward the end of the episode, and it's not something good what he shows, but we are going to talk about that later. But yes, I enjoyed it.
Yes, when I first started watching the series the first time through, I was not expecting Lauren to turn out to be a man because they were called Lauren. But then when you find out that our beautiful innocent priest and Joseph is kind of trading secrets and working together with a criminal, not just any criminal, like a sociopath, psychopath who's been locked up for the Vatican for being demonic because he has no emotions or remorse. You're like, how the hell did our lovely innocent Joseph get involved and be on quite friendly terms and quite understanding terms with this character? But of course, this is the episode where we find out.
And I also think it's because Joseph wants to see the good in everyone.
Yeah.
He gives everyone a second and even a third chance before turning on them.
Yeah. But no, Joseph obviously sees that there is more to Lauren than what everyone else has told him. So we get our beautiful opening, which is gorgeous, and I love it so much. It's just gorgeous. And the name of the episode is The Game of Angels and Demons. And if you remember from the very, very first episode, this is the game that Joseph was playing that had I've got 265 moves, and if I make this move in 300 moves, I'll lose the game, and if I do that, and it's what is this insane game? I mean, I don't really know how this game works, but Joseph, obviously being a clever boy, has created this game, and he decides that he's going to bring this game to Lauren to play. And that's why the episode is called A Game of Angels and Demons, and also because there is a literal game of Angel of Demons being played out. And this episode, it likes to have a flashback within a flashback within a flashback. There are multiple flashbacks going on. So, we find out that Joseph and Lauren are kind of friends. You know, they like to play this game together, and they like to chat theology and stuff together, and the fact that one believes in miracles and one really doesn't believe in anything. Because, well, he's, cold and distant. But we're they're still chatting about how the cases have gone, and we get a flashback of how they originally met, and the fact that Lauren was told that once a week he has to talk to a priest because apparently he's demonic. And so he goes through all the various ones he requests, and he's like, I'm going to choose Joseph because he's got the highest IQ of any of these people, and I might be able to actually have a conversation with the guy. So Joseph's like, oh, yes, well, more than that, I'm also really brilliant and my mind works on multiple. Basically, if Joseph wasn't like a priest, or like, he could have very easily gone down the path of like psychopath or sociopath, because his brain works in all different kind of dimensions. But he's like, aha, I have a game to play with you, Lauren. I know this is our first meeting or anything, but if I can prove that God exists, then you have to believe in him. And if you can prove he doesn't exist, then you can do whatever you want with me. And you're like, oh, even Lauren's like, that's a high gamble from a priest, just like offering up. But Lauren's like, well, since there is no God and there's no such thing as happiness, it's an illusion. Doesn't matter what you're going to tell me, there is no way I'm going to have any kind of faith, believe in miracles, and think that God exists. So then we get our flashback within our flashback, in which we get the story that Joseph recounts from his youth, in which he met a man that's, we're going to call him Bricket, John Bricket, which implies that this is based on a real person, but he can't name this real person, so he's got his name of John Bricket. And young Joseph has won an amazing competition for chemical reaction, some kind of chemical experiment, and I'm like, cool. And he's invited to John Brickett's house to be congratulated, get his prize, have a cup of tea. And he's all like, oh, this is wonderful, this is nice. He's like, young kid, all very excited. And he's a bit like, why am I here? And John Brickett is like, well, I've got a question for you. And I would like you to answer this question about, like, devils. And this kid's like, am I really the right person to be asking about devils? And he's like, yes, because only the pure of heart can. And this ties in with a very Japanese thing, that the only people who can judge adults are children, because children are untainted by adult society and all the corruptions of adulthood. Therefore, they had the most purest ideals and ideas about how adults should behave. So there's a little bit of that in there. And yeah, we get another flashback within a flashback. It's just like, oh, we are in the Vatican Inception at the moment, because it's like flashback within a flashback within a flashback. And we get this really interesting story about John when he was a boy. And it was Christmas and everything seems to be lovely. But round the dinner table, his dad was like, I have a game to play and I have a present for you. And he's like, oh, this is good. And the mum's like, can this not wait till after dinner? He's like, no, you must have the present now. And it turns out that when John's dad was a child, so another flashback within our flashback, he thought he'd play a game with God and test to see of his existence by praying to the angel Samyaza.
Shemyaza.
Okay, right. I was like, how do you even pronounce that? And who is? I have never heard of Samyaza. How do you pronounce it?
Shemyaza.
I've never heard of Shemyaza. It has never turned up in anything religion, and it didn't turn up in Nietzsche's Evangelion, which is where I learnt most of my angels from. So who is Shemyaza?
Shemyaza is one of the few fallen angels we know the name of. He was with Azazel, one of the angels of God who willingly decided to follow Lucifer in his rebellion, and they willingly fell with him.
Okay.
They were also famous because they began their rebellion bedding mortal women. So basically, Shemyaza and Azazel are the fathers of the Nephilim race, half humans and half angels. And they were cursed with the knowledge coming from their fathers. That's why they loses their mind. The Nephilim are these powerful, beautiful creatures, totally crazy, because they have mortal bodies, but the knowledge of their fathers. That's why they were so hated even by the angel that is said that Michael himself came on earth to destroy them. But Shemyaza and Azazel were the fathers of the Nephilim, long before they fell with Lucifer.
Yeah, because between like all the anime I've watched, Evangelion, Supernatural, and Shadowhunters, for there to be a name come up that I've never heard of, I'm like, you've not turned up in anything. But it turns out it's another real figure. This series really knows how to dig up obscure like figures from Christianic texts. Like it's like it knows
Mm,
some.
no, Shemyaza was named in some rabbinic books, so he came before the Christianity. He
Yeah.
was part of the Jewish and Hebrew religion.
Yes. I always kind of like it's when I think of Christianity and all those bits, I always assume that they're just what evolved into what Christianity because it came from like it was Hebrew and basically it came from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Is how I
Exactly.
normally go. Is like Christianity somehow came from the I don't know my religion well enough, but the Dead Sea Scrolls. So if they yeah, and even
Yeah,
though I
more or less. Let's just say Christianity comes from Hebrew
yeah
religion. Yeah, let's just say that because if we start with the Dead Sea Scrolls, we are going to spend too long talking about it, and
yeah
we are not going to solve anything,
no
even because scholars still don't know what those really are. So, hey,
yes. Oh no. On my other anime podcast, we reviewed Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I attempted to read as much of the translated like Dead Sea Scrolls to understand what was going on, and that was a mistake. For a start, I'm dyslexic, so I'm just like, I don't. And I was like, what is going on? The world was inhabited by giants as well, and the children of Lilith, and the oh my goodness, and I'm like, I've got a basic understanding of like what's going on, but still, I should never have tried to read the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was not good. It was like, but anyway, yes. Back to Vatican. So
Shemyaza.
Shamiaza says, "Aha! I've got a test for you. I will grant you like 1,000 wishes, and if you can, like, if you can prove that you have got a pure human soul, like, then all the wonderful loveliness, all the good. It's a decent test. Obviously, the dad does not pass this test." And and as he grows up, he fails his 1,000 wishes, and therefore invites in the demon Azazel. And now, oh no, it's Azrael, isn't it? Not Azazel.
No, no, Azazel.
It is Azazel. Azrael. Wait a minute, Azrael's the cat from the Smurfs, isn't it?
Exactly.
Can you imagine? It's like, I am the cat from the Smurfs. I will eat all the blue people. Yeah, so the evil spirit of Azrael. No, so Azazel comes and goes, ha ha, you failed the angel's test. Your soul now belongs to the demon. Ha ha ha. And he's like, oh dear, that's not very good. But I'm now going to pass this test on to your son. And your son now has to prove whether or not humanity is good or bad. And your son now has 1,000 wishes. And the curse and the test of this angel and demon who are playing with human souls to prove whether or not they are inherently good or bad continues in our life of our boy John Wick. No, not John Wick. Oh my god, can you imagine if John Wick also had 1,000 wishes? Maybe he does.
Oh,
Maybe that explains
oh,
everything.
oh well, you would reshape the world
Yeah.
in the way that it works better for him.
Yeah.
So,
Lots of
and
open
never
space and dogs.
exactly, and a never-ending numbers of enemies, so that he doesn't get bored.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Yes. Okay. Sorry, listeners. I'm a bit tired. I went to the gym for the first time in about a year today, and I'm like, brain says no. It's just like, well done, you exercised. Now you can have a nap. And I'm like, no time for nap. There is mysteries to examine. Well, miracles to examine. Now, I don't know much about Azrael, apart from Azrael does turn up in pretty much every single TV show ever that goes, we need demons that aren't Lucifer. Of course, Alistair and Azrael, they are everywhere.
Azazel.
Azazel. Azazel.
Azazel.
Not Azrael, not the cat from the Smurfs. Azazel. Azazel.
Azrael is also another angel, but he didn't fall. So Azazel is always named with Lucifer because, like I said, he fell with him. He was one of the seven who fell willingly with Lucifer. They kept following their general until the very end, and they ended up having very important roles in hell, like they did in heaven. So yeah, Azazel is
Azazel.
Yeah, he jumps from nowhere and say, "Hey, I, you are now my son," and you are like, "Aha." Such a nice Christmas dinner.
Yes, you are now the son of a demon and you've got 1,000 wishes. And obviously, he's like, 1,000 wishes, that's great. But actually, 1,000 wishes has led to nothing but misfortune. So poor John is a bit like, what just went on? And then obviously, like, his dad just like incinerates. So he loses his dad on Christmas, finds out that he's the son of a demon, and that he's got this 1,000 wishes. And what's the first thing that happens on Christmas night when he's lying in bed? Santa comes to visit. Which normally in any child's life would be great. But it's the freaking creepiest Santa ever tapping at the door going, and you're like, well, that's Santa's dodge. So he hides under the covers and he's like, just go away, just go away, just go away. I'm freaking out. There's an evil Santa. Go away. The next morning, it finds out that his neighbours have been massacred. And while they caught the killer, all his friends and their family are dead. And it's known as, like, the Christmas murders, the bloody Christmas. And it turns out that a man dressed as Santa got in and murdered them all. And John realizes, obviously, that his first wish has come true, to be left alone. And by being left alone, he's cursed someone else and killed them all. And he feels a lot of guilt for this. Now, to John's credit, turns out that he's quite a caring and understanding young boy, young man, and he does not want to use these wishes. He decides he is going to live the best live he can and prove that he doesn't need to have wishes to make it come home. So he buckles down and he studies hard and he gets good marks. And you think this would be great. But unfortunately, his mum, from obviously being at the dinner table, knows about the wishes. And every time he does anything good, she goes, did you wish that? Did you wish that? I got an A on this test. Did you wish that? And John is beginning to get really tired of never being praised for his achievements, always being second guessed, always being assumed that he wished these results than getting any of the recognition for his hard work over the years. And finally, he can't do it anymore. He gets into college on his own merit, his own skill. And the mum is like, oh, I bet you wish that. I bet you wish that. She just kind of loses it a bit. And he's just like, Mother, will you shut up? I wish you would just disappear. Would you just, like, leave me alone? And that's exactly what happens. She falls down dead. And poor John is immediately like, oh no, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean you to actually, like, die. Oh God. So he goes to pray and tries to kind of realign his faith and his soul and what he wants in life, because he wanted a good life and he wanted his mum to love him for who he was and to respect his hard work and notice him and give attention to him. He didn't really wish for a death. He just wished that she would change her mind and changed the way she lived a bit. He goes back downstairs and the mum has been resurrected. And Lauren says, as we flash back to the current conversation, well, isn't that what he wanted? Isn't that great? And Joseph has another layer of like, well, you'd think that, but actually it just brought more heartache. It says basically this damned if you do, damned if you don't, really. And it's like, I don't know how John is even sane anymore. It sounds like it's such a rough time. So Mum has come back, and Mum's all like, "Oh, John, you're so amazing. Oh, you're so clever. Oh, you're so talented," and really really adores him. The problem is she has had a change of heart about where her strength lies and her faith, and has decided that she also really appreciates the material things. And the wish has been slightly twisted, and she wants the finer things in life and the best things, and she becomes a bit greedy. And John decides, being an actual good human being, he's not going to wish for her to get those things. He works to, like, earn it and actually, like, be able to afford the mother the life that, like, she wants. And yeah, he never really gets the recognition or appreciation, and he ends up very lonely. Lonely, not sure how to love or be loved young man. But he finds himself in a new chapter in his life, and he starts going to the aquarium. Now, kudos to the aquarium. The aquarium is one of the greatest places on the planet. I love an aquarium. Nothing makes me happier than watching fish be fish and float around. I'm not such a big fan of, like, the shows and the things, because it's not really me. I just like watching fish. But yeah. So he goes to the aquarium and to the dolphin show. And there, the lead trainer is just the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. And he keeps going back day in, day out, just to see this wonderful woman. And eventually she notices him. He gets to go upstage and gets a kiss from a dolphin, and he's just like, oh, this is just like, she's the perfect woman. And at first you think how lucky he's finally going to be able to get the love he deserves and someone to understand him so he won't be so lonely. And that's where he eventually starts dating Marlene, and it's all very good. And then eventually he decides he's going to propose. But then this little thing is like he wants to propose, but he hasn't asked the family, and he really needs. So he tries to find out. Wait a minute, I don't know where Marlene's family is, and nobody seems to know. And they're like, "You're dating her. How do you not know where her parents live?" And he goes, "That's a very good point." And he starts to worry. And then I think it's another beautiful Christmas dinner. And it's like, oh, this poor man and Christmas. It's just like, it's just not fair. And he's like, Marlene, how come I don't know where your parents are? How come I don't know anything about you? Do you know who your parents are? What exactly happens when I'm not around? And Marlene suddenly breaks and goes, oh my God, I have no memory of my existence of when I'm not with you. And she starts freaking out because if you suddenly realise that you did not exist and you have no memory of your childhood, your family, or anything you did when your like boyfriend wasn't around, you'd be a bit like, and he suddenly realizes, oh my God, she is perfect. She's everything I wanted in a woman. You know, she's kind, she's honest, she's caring, she's there to fulfill the needs of my loneliness and have someone to share my life with. I've clearly wished her into existence. And he realised that yet again he's wished and he's brought this woman into her life. And he kind of partly feels guilt that he's given life to something because he is still a religious man, and he's like, oh my goodness, I've given life. That is not something I should be doing. I've been actively trying to avoid this. Also, like, now she's in pain from this realization that she's a figment of his imagination or come to life. Like, although she does exist because people meet her and she's got a job and stuff, but he's just like, it's just not what he wanted. He wanted a true, honest, like, you know, partner in life rather than a creation of his desires. And this causes her to just crack and disappear, and she dies. And he's obviously quite distraught. He's like, oh my God, I've just killed the love of my life. And he's just like, I am never going to love again. I am never going to love again. I am never going to love anybody else. She was the only one I ever wanted to love. I will only ever love her. And therefore, he enacts another wish, and she's like, John, I'm back. This is what you wished for. And he was like, yes, yes it is. I love you, and I'm glad I've made this wish. And they get married and kind of live happily ever after.
Actually, I don't think he actually made a wish because during the whole scene he was crying, and crying is something that only humans can do. Angels don't cry, demons don't cry. So, in showing how human he is, no matter who his father was, this time I think the wish of his heart was granted by God Himself, because he recognized that this is a good man tasked with a terrible thing to do, exactly like Job. He never asked for these to fall upon him. He never asked to have a demon as a father. He's doing everything in his power not to follow his father's path. And in the end, he's a good man. And he's human. He's totally human because he can cry. That's that's
That's
how
a
I see it.
that's a very nice. It's like, so it's proof that a real miracle happened. Like, a miracle came
Yes.
true. But he still harbours a little bit of guilt over this. And so, you know, he asks young Joseph, like, was what I did good? Did the demon win because I made that final wish? And Joseph, being a wonderful, kind-hearted, and just loving young man, is like, no, you won. You showed that above all, the thing he wanted more in life was to love someone and to give love. It's like you didn't create her for your own, for any desires like that people generally would like wish the perfect woman. He created her to love her, and when he lost her, he realized how much he loved her. When he got her back, he still loved her, and that amount of just pure, genuine love is a gift. and therefore he created something out of love, like God, who created like man out of love. And it's like he shouldn't feel bad for doing that because, yeah, love saves the day. And while I'm not a biggest romantic on love saving the day, the idea that like he's not judged for creating something, because he didn't create something in his own image, he created something to give love. And he had been so good and pure his entire life. He never did things like selfishly, apart from a couple of times. And that was more out of like just emotional, like, and he was a young child when most of the earlier wishes happened. As an adult, he didn't have selfish gains and he worked hard and he deserved that. So I was like, that is sweet. You're a nice man, Joseph. Back to our jail cell, and Joseph beats Lauren, and Lauren's like, wait a minute, you just told me this weird story to like, distract me from everything that was going on. And Joseph is like, oh, so same time next week. So clearly Lauren has felt that this other man has challenged him, but not only like on an IQ and intellectual level, but on his like theology and on his a way to kind of play the kind of games that he didn't expect like a priest to be able to play with him, and he's intrigued. And Lauren's not going anywhere. He's got an ankle bracelet that if he moves a certain distance is going to poison him, which I'm like, it's a bit harsh. He's in a sale, but maybe this guy is like, I don't know. I'm seeing him as weird levels of Moriarty going on here, and probably could escape the cell if he didn't have like anklet of poison death attached to him. And yeah.
Sorry, he reminds me of Toshiko Sato. Do you remember her in Torchwood?
Oh, Toshko, yeah.
Yeah, he reminds me of her because Jack found her in a prison, in a cell, because she
Yes.
was too smart, and she basically recreated the doctor's screwdriver. And
Yes.
Unit wasn't so happy about that, so they preferred to take her from her family, her life, and throw her in a cell and forget about her.
Yes. So it's like, yeah, Lauren is like, it's much better just to hide him in a dark place than to try and understand him or like allow him to use his abilities in a way that's a bit more productive. Although I say like leaking government secrets isn't too bad if they're bad secrets. People have a right to know. But yes.
No, what really was against him was that he sold a biological weapon.
Yeah, I think that's slightly the worst. Yeah, the selling of biological weapons, slightly worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, so Lauren is definitely like impressed by Joseph and happy for those meetings. So we get back to present day, and God, I love the ending of this episode. Like, it's just
Me
amazing.
too.
All my shipper vibes and my Yaoi vibes come to life because Lauren makes the mistake of asking Joseph how Roberto is doing. And Roberto is clearly the most smitten man because, oh my goodness, like he just goes on. He's just like, oh, Roberto, he's so intelligent and talented. And he's like, oh, talented? Yes, talented, the most talented. Oh, talented doesn't even begin to explain it. He's just so brilliant and intelligent and wonderful. And he's amazing at ironing. I could never in a million years get the creases out the way he does it. And he's a fantastic cook. And then he just goes on. And there's obviously no sign of him shutting up about Roberto anytime soon. And Lauren's sitting there going, oh, God, I wish I never asked. And obviously
No,
not so happy about this. Oh, so my intellectual equal and person that I was going to, like, have a really interesting relationship and friendship, and, like, I'm the only person that I'm willing to show my real self around, is absolutely smitten and absolutely just enamored by his new partner.
oh yes, totally. He's not happy. He's not happy at all. Joseph doesn't even realize how he changed the moment he starts waxing poetry for Robert and
Yeah.
about Robert and speaking about Robert, talking about Robert, telling how amazing Robert is, how good care of him Robert takes,
Yeah.
and all that beautiful and magnificent times they spent together. And Lauren is not happy. The more Joseph speaks, the more enraged and cold and closed off he becomes.
Yeah. There was like they were having this wonderful meeting of the intellectuals, and they were both being quite logical and intelligent, and like, and mind playy. And then all of a sudden, Joseph is like, "And Roberto, and he's lovely, and the way he cooked dinner for me last night was beautiful." And it's like, oh. Oh dear, Lauren's not fond of this particular side of you, but yeah,
No.
Joseph doesn't
And
realise.
I have a feeling Joseph already made a new enemy for Roberto. And he doesn't even know that.
Oh dear. But yeah, we then get this. I love the tiny little scene after the credits when they talk about the case or what's going on, and that Joseph is still praising Roberto to everything, and Roberto is like, "Oh yes, there is something you've forgotten though," and Joseph's like, "No, I could never forget anything about you," and Roberto's like, "No, you forgot to turn the iron off," and he's like, "Oh, oh yes." And it's like, oh, I love how literally you've just like beautiful confession of undying affection there. I'd never forget you. I'd never forget anything. No, no, you forgot to turn the iron off. You need to unplug the iron. And it's like, oh, oh, Joseph, look at you wearing your heart on your sleeve and just being totally in love with Roberto. It's amazing. It's lovely.
Oh, yes, totally, totally. I love it.
Yes.
I love them.
Yeah, they are. They're just domestic working husbands. Everything is beautiful. They're just like gorgeous. But it's like it wasn't like the world's most exciting episode, but it was a really interesting for character development, setting up the kind of the world and the theology, and also for just seeing how smitten Joseph is.
And it also was very weird
Well, with the
because
inception of a flashback and a flashback.
no, no, because I wrote about Shemiadza just last Saturday,
Yes.
long before you sent me the episode, and I was like, wait a moment,
It's like,
interesting.
no one uses this name. As I said, I'd never heard of it. And I'm like, come on, there is not much I don't watch that doesn't have, like, when you live on a diet of things like, X-Files, Supernatural, Lucifer, Shadowhunters, like, and Constantine graphic novels, like, you think you've met them all. And then I was like, who are
No,
you? I've never heard of you.
exactly.
Yes.
That's
Ah.
very, very exciting.
Ooh, it's gonna be interesting. There's something about this now. It was either a fate or it's a sign of something, but for now we won't know what it is. But yes, Gaia, anything else to add for today's episode?
No, not today.
No. Well, people, it's always a pleasure. Obviously, if you like horror, in particular demonic possession, do check out our other podcast, Beneath Your Skin. If you want to just have general anime, I've reviewed shows such as Neon Genesis Evangelion and Puella Magi Madoka Magica. That's on my Newbie vs. Weeaboo channel. You can find us both on Twitter, and basically, if you type Let Zoe Spoil You in, you'll find pretty much everything I do at all my social medias. But for now, byes.
Thank you for listening, and bye bye.